Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit different just because I'm doing a proper podcast sit down video all about my university and my degree and just about like university in general, I guess. But since filming lots of like event management videos and videos focused on university, I have got a hell of a lot of DMs on Instagram about London universities, university life, University of Greenwich more specifically, video coming soon. But basically all I wanted to do was to kind of just collate that information so it's not just between me and one other person. I can kind of share it with everyone, and it does mean if anyone else has any questions that pop up in the future, I can either direct them to this video and then elaborate on more specific questions that they may have. That word always catches me out. But I've written a list here on my phone. There's not hundreds of different pros and cons, but I thought I'd just touch through some of the pros and cons about going to a university in London specifically, because I know there's a lot of international students and things like that who haven't really experienced London before or England before, and just want to know more about it. So I thought I'd just chat through some of the pros and cons between here and other places in England. Obviously, I'm not going to comment on like universities abroad because honestly I don't know enough to be able to. I feel like my knowledge is very like England based. I feel like quite limited there, but I'll discuss kind of my experience with it as well, just to give you a bit of extra background knowledge. So just a bit of background into me. I go to the University of Greenwich and I've been there for 4 years now, so quite a long time. But before I went to the University of Greenwich, I was looking around other universities obviously, and I looked around Bournemouth, Winchester and Falmouth, which is like in Cornwall. So mainly along the south. I haven't really ventured up north to any universities just because I knew personally I wanted to be at home, but that's mainly where this pros and cons list has come from, kind of my experiences of what I saw in between those different universities. So we'll start off with the pros because it's always nice to start on a positive note. So if you are considering going to the university in London, the one thing that I would say is the job opportunities here are amazing, just because it's such a big place and there's so many like headquarters of companies here. London is like the business capital, if you will, of England anyway, so there's a lot going on here, especially like across multitude of like different industries, but especially in case of like events, which is what I'm doing, or marketing and PR and everything like that, there tends to be quite like dense proportion of job opportunities here, and because those headquarters are based here, there is obviously the chance for career progression. So obviously it's not really university based. You could obviously move after you've done your university to London, but being in London already, getting the reputation from a London university makes it a bit more seamless with your move into a London career. So with that, obviously work experience opportunities come hand in hand. So whilst you're at university, you will probably want to be doing some work experience, and if you're in a smaller town like Falmouth or Winchester, you might find it a bit more tricky to get a kind of relevant work experience opportunity which has like the esteem that maybe some London opportunities have, but also you may have to like commute to those opportunities if you do find them around the border of the university you're considering, whereas a university in a city, there's obviously more jobs, more big businesses, so the work experience opportunities are much higher. In terms of the universities themselves, I would say they're kind of like pretty similar to other universities. Obviously some of them are older than others, so you have kind of like the heritage point of view, so like the University of Greenwich, but then you have that in other places, like Oxford University is really old, so that kind of has the same vibe, but then you have new universities here as you would in like Falmouth or Bournemouth, which I know have been like recently upgraded. So in terms of the universities themselves, I wouldn't say there's too much difference. Obviously we don't have as larger campuses here because London is very condensed, so it does mean your university halls might be like a walk or a bus ride away from your actual university, whereas I know some of the others are like literally on site, but that's really the only difference between the universities themselves. But I wouldn't necessarily say that is a pro or a con. My last pro that I could think of for going to a university in London specifically was just the transport links. Like getting anywhere in London is really, really easy. And also if you're planning on going on a lot of holidays whilst you're a student and you have your student loan, the airports are all here obviously, and you get some really, really cheap flights going from London. So that's another bonus. As I was saying that, I just thought another pro is all of the like attractions we have here in London. Obviously the nightlife is really great. You have loads of like tourist attractions like the London Eye, Madame Tussauds, all of that good stuff. There's amazing shopping. So in terms of like social life, London is obviously very good because you get that kind of city atmosphere. And I feel like if it's something you want to go into in the future, like if you want to be a city bug and you want to be living in the city where it's in London or New York or wherever, I feel like going to a university in a city is quite a good introduction to that. Obviously that doesn't have to be London, you could go to another city in England, but London is obviously a pretty intense city, so it's quite a good way to get your grips on like city life. In terms of cons, I only came up with, oh no, I guess there's 2 cons, but one of them's kind of like maybe a con. The first one that's maybe a con is obviously there's a lot of crime in London, which I know puts some people off. I know my boyfriend's mum was really worried about him moving to London just because of like the terrorist threats and like stabbings and everything like this, which I think, to be honest, is a threat in everyone's daily life no matter where you live. Obviously in some places it's heightened more than others, but I mean getting in a car is more dangerous than getting on the tube, do you know what I mean? So you kind of just have to put those things in perspective. So for me, I don't think of it as a con specifically. I live in quite a nice area, so that might be why it's not such a threat to me personally, but it may be something you want to consider when moving to London. Obviously I work in the O2, which is like one of the biggest like terrorist threat places you would have imagined in London, I guess, from like the arena bombings and everything like that. But London is very high on their security, so I feel like you have to take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt, you know. The last con, which I'm sure you are all expecting, is the cost. So I did a bit of research on this, and consumer prices, like including rent, compared from London to Manchester is 33% higher. So like that includes like shopping, food shop, bills, rent, all of that combined is 33% higher than it would be in Manchester, in London. So yeah, it's very expensive. Obviously the student loans kind of know that and kind of try to accommodate for that by giving you like a slightly higher student loan. I'm not sure what exactly like the margin or the percentage of higher student loan we actually get, and obviously there's a higher living wage here, but it doesn't really matter because the cost of living is higher, so it's not like you're getting paid more for doing exactly the same, because you are having to spend more just on living. So I would say if you are from a like incredibly low income or anything like that, it will be quite difficult to move to London. I was very lucky in the sense like my parents were able to help me out a bit just by like giving me like a £20 budget for the week kind of thing, just to cover my food shop basically. I did have 3 jobs whilst in my first and second year at uni, and then I did my placement for a year which was paid, and now I'm only doing 1 job at O2, but just because I had savings from my placement. But yeah, so it's quite an expensive place to live. You would probably have to get a job whilst doing your university, which if that's something you really don't want to do, you either need to have a lot of savings, come from a nice income home, or choose a different university or somewhere which isn't so expensive. But I haven't found the cost of living here too bad. Obviously the rent is pretty high, but I have been quite lucky in the sense like I found a few gaps where like we're just about to move and my friend's auntie owns the house, so it's a little bit cheaper for us. And we also managed to get quite a good deal on this house. I don't know how we managed that. I can probably tell you now because I'm moving out. But rent here is £1,300 a month between 2 people, so not too bad. Obviously not the best, but there you go. And yeah, that would be my main con. The main thing that it like really sucks your bank account is going out a lot, so going out for like the night or going clubbing or anything like that, drinks and entry and Ubers and all of those things that are very expensive compared to like smaller towns and things. But it just depends like what is a priority to you. Like that isn't really something I'm super interested in, so I'm able to save some more money. Then I know some of my friends like love doing that, so they spend quite a bit on that. But yeah, it's just kind of like what you enjoy and what you feel like is important enough to spend your money on. So yeah, they were all my pros and cons for choosing a university in London. I think you can agree they're pretty obvious, but these are all things I've definitely experienced. In terms of like the work experience I had during my placement, that was not easy to get, but it was ready available to me, whereas I didn't have to like commute for ages to get there or anything like that. And I had different options that I could have gone to, like it wasn't just one thing I had to choose from. There were like a plethora of different companies that offered the same thing. and I know after graduation going into looking for a new job it won't be as difficult as it would be if I was in like a little village or a small town or something like that. I also then have the like comfort of knowing that I went to quite a reputable university, so obviously there are reputable, that's a hard word, reputable universities around the country, not just London, but the University of Greenwich was #1 for events in London, so that was also a comfort to me and a pro for me personally going to a London university. So there will be different things depending on what course you're doing. But yeah, I have really enjoyed going to a uni in London. I really didn't think I would ever go to university in London. Like when I was looking, I didn't even want to look around any London universities because I did not want to be in a city. If you know me, you know I grew up by the beach. I am a country gal, like get me in some wellies any day. I do not want to be sat in a cab or on the tube sweating. Like that to me was just not appealing. And like large masses of people, I was like, whoa. But I have managed to find like pockets of London where it's a bit quieter, a bit more relaxed, feels a bit more like home. There's still loads of parks and green spaces, so you can kind of have your barbecues, have a bit of a sunbathe, everything like that. There's obviously the river, which is really beautiful and kind of gives me that bit of beach away from home. Obviously I have experienced the high cost of living and high prices within London, but I've managed to budget and find ways to kind of save money along the way to help me out with that, as well as having very nice parents who are offering to help me in first year, which really helped the transition. But yeah, just something else to consider. In terms of why I didn't go to the other universities away from London, considering that I didn't want to be in a London university, it was just the thought of doing events management. Like a lot of events are in London, so I thought it was the right place to be. And I also knew that if I were to have any volunteering or part-time jobs like that, they would be more of a higher standard, like a, what do you call it, on a larger scale maybe, because they were London events, so they would have been more like of high prestige. I don't know if I'm just making up words here. Then like events would have been in Falmouth, which is like a really tiny seaside town. So as lovely as that would have been to have like that little community feel, which I really do love, I just knew like the nightlife wouldn't have been as good. My experience, maybe like things to do on the weekends, would have been pretty limited, and then when it did come to getting a job I would have probably had to move again to London or to another city, whereas I'm here already, I've set my roots, I've kind of found my way, and I know I don't have to be moving anywhere after graduation. In terms of Bournemouth and Winchester, they were both really great universities. It was just the fact that they were a bit too close from home to home. I'm from Bournemouth, so obviously going to Bournemouth University I would have been right on my front doorstep, and then Winchester's like a 40-minute drive, which would have been fine. Like my friends go to University of Winchester and they really love it, but for me I just wanted something a little bit different, so I feel like London was the right pace for me. But I think it is honestly just weighing up kind of the things you're looking for, and the things you're hoping to gain. Like for me, I knew I wanted a pretty damn good job doing events, and I didn't want to do, like the events in Bournemouth would have been pretty lower scale, and I knew I wanted to do something a bit more interesting and a bit more ambitious, so London was the right place for me. But I think long term, I guess, is what I'm trying to say through all of this babble, is basically I didn't go to those universities because I knew I wanted something bigger for myself in the future. So whether that was in another city or in London, London was close enough for home to me, it's like a 2.5 hour drive, that it wasn't too bad. Whereas if I had gone to Manchester or something like that, which obviously universities there are great as well, and you have the lower living costs, so why not? But for me it was just too far from home. That would have been, I'm making it up here, but about a 4-hour drive I think, and for me that was just too much because I'm a home bug and I like going home and seeing the seaside. So yeah, London was definitely the right option for me. I feel like they need to create like a little, what do you call them? Do you remember in old magazines you would have like little quizzes and it'd be like yes, no, and it would be like, do you want to do this? Yes, and then you'd go to the next bubble. If there was a no, there was another bubble, and it should filter down what the London University is right for you. Maybe we should try and make one of those, because that would be great, and very helpful to a lot of people, I'm sure. But that's my thoughts on going to a university in London. It obviously doesn't have to be the University of Greenwich specifically. That's just the only experience I've had of a London university, and was the only London university I actually looked around. So I have no knowledge of any other London universities, but that's my take on it. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit a thumbs up, and if you are at a London university or you have any opinions of universities in London or any other pros and cons that you can think of, please do listen down below, because like I said, these are just things that I've personally experienced, so you may have had a whole total different experience than me and have different things to contribute, and that would be really great if you could leave those below for other people. Please do subscribe. I post 2 videos a week, and like I said, I have got a video coming up specifically about the University of Greenwich because I get a lot of questions about that too, so hopefully that will be helpful to some of you considering London universities. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Bye!